Hello, I'm Marcus Barker and I'm the Chief Executive of Piano Plus, and I'm joined here today by the Honourable Bronwyn Bishop, who is the President of the Friends of the competition. Bronwyn, welcome.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Lovely to be here.
I believe that you've been involved, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you've been involved with the competition from when it first started back in 1977. Is that correct, or just a wild rumour?
It's absolutely correct, but it's actually even before that. Because when it was announced, there was quite a lot of preparation that had to go on. And in those days, it was run by an executive committee of the board, of which I was a member. And then Claire Dan, who was a friend of mine, asked me would I form the Friends. And that's how it started.
Wonderful. And so you mentioned the name of Claire Dan.
Yes.
Some people may not necessarily know that name. Would you like to tell us a little bit about who Claire Dan was?
Yes, I would. Claire Dan was quite a remarkable woman. She had come from communist Hungary. She had escaped, as it were.
Yes.
She had been an actress. She was someone who was passionate about the piano, and she wanted to do something for Australian young people. Now today, we realise that young pianists all around the world can see and hear each other through the internet, through YouTube.
Very true.
But in those days, there was no such ability to know what the competition was like in the world.
Yeah.
And so Claire wanted to bring the best that the world had to offer here, so that young pianists, young people could hear, and older people as well, could hear the best of the young people in their own country.
Yeah.
So that became a very expensive exercise because we had to pay airfares, per diem, accommodation, moving them round. And so that's how all the work that had to go on before we started with the first competition in 77. And if I might say, I would say to people then, well, you must come to the piano competition. And they'd say, but I don't play. I said, no. What you're going to do is hear the best.
Exactly. We want you to listen and we want you to partake in being in the audience.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes, indeed.
And so did Claire Dan start it by herself, or were there other people involved in the beginning
No,
days?
there were others involved, very much so, particularly Rex Hopcroft, who was then the director of this institution.
That's right, yes.
In fact, we used to meet in his office, and he was very much involved, and he was the first artistic director, of course. Robert Tobias was someone who was around in those early days.
Yes.
And of course, Sir Ian Turbot was the initial chair of the executive committee. And so it was a structure where Claire wanted to do not only that, but more. And in the beginning, she had her own foundation, of which I was on the board as well. And she brought out a whole lot of theatrical acts, and some of it became part of the Festival of Sydney. She had a very broad aim, but ultimately the piano competition was what she focused on. And of course, getting membership of the international body was pivotal to that.
Yeah.
And so,
she was very much a forward thinker, wasn't she?
Yes.
She was bringing out a lot of those big, as you just mentioned, theatre companies out to Australia before the festivals were doing them, what we see and enjoy today, what with Sydney Festival, Melbourne Festival. Claire was doing that then. And so her forward vision, it's wonderful to think that we're going to be almost reaching 50 years in the next few years, in 2027 actually, and that this vision that Claire Dan had so long ago is still going strong today.
That's it.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? When someone comes from a country where there's no freedom, she was determined to see freedom here and to see the blossoming of artistic endeavour that happens when you have freedom.
Absolutely. And we see that on the stage during this year's competition, don't we?
Yeah.
That we're here celebrating these wonderful young artists for their capacity as a musician and as a pianist and their freedom to do so.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And we also, you mentioned Rex Hopcroft, who was one of the original founders of the piano competition. And we also have a prize, the People's Choice Prize, in his name for this year's competition. Or actually, we had it for 2016's competition as well, didn't we?
Yes.
Indeed. So, but you're the president of the Friends of the Sydney International Piano Competition. Can you tell me a little bit about what the Friends' role is and what they do to support the competition?
Yes, well, in the beginning, it was like everything. Pick up people at the airport, billet them, feed them, whatever. But these days, what we do mainly is we have a membership of several hundred, and we run recitals in between competitions, keep alive the concept of the competition and people identifying with the competition.
Yes.
And they're all people who are lovers of piano music. And by doing that, we raise funds. And of course, we now give the first prize of $50,000.
It's amazing to think that this group of volunteers do all of this work in between those years, in between our competition years, I should say, to actually support the competition in giving the first prize of the $50,000, which is so wonderful.
Well, we have a fantastic council who run the Friends, and we have a very good, tight, good executive. I have a great treasurer in Terry Mackin and a great secretary in Connie McManus and other office bearers who are terrific. And that means that we also run a newsletter, which of course you help us with, and put it online, but we send out hard copy as well.
Yes.
And that enables us to not only keep aware the idea of the competition, because we run, 4 or 5 recitals a year.
Indeed, yes.
And that means that the name of the competition goes out broadly. It also means that when it comes to questions of volunteers, we have a ready workforce too. And I think the fact that so many members, particularly of the council and also of the Friends, have become Club 32 members is also indicative of their commitment.
And the Club 32 program is an important program. You mentioned before about back in 1977, the Friends were raising the funds to bring these young artists out to Australia. What we do now with Club 32 is that those Club 32 donors are now those, I guess, patrons of these young artists and helping to bring them out to Australia. So in a way, there's been an evolution, hasn't there, from where the Friends started way back in 1977. They're still active, very much active today, but we now have this lovely evolution of a very a fruitful donation program for the competition now in 2023.
Yes.
So just talking about some of the other evolutions that you've seen since that time, maybe give us some reflections of things that have changed or some highlights that have happened over the period that you've been involved with the Sydney International Piano Competition.
Well, yes, I can. Certainly in the early days, when Rex was no longer the artistic director, and of course Warren Thompson became the artistic director, and we worked very closely with Warren, and he was a vice president of the Friends as well, so there was a close interaction in that way. So we've seen that evolution take place when you took the role and you've given it your character and progressed the competition in a very professional way. But I might remember that it was important that in 2016 that we discussed streaming. And so the Friends paid for the streaming from here, from the con.
Absolutely. And today our audiences are watching us around the world.
Yes.
And you're absolutely correct that the Friends were integral in actually enabling us to actually live stream the competition for the first time back in 2016. Yes. But now we know also what happened after 2020 or in 2020, that we actually moved online. For the online competition. And the work that the Friends had actually the gift that the Friends had given us to actually live stream in 2016, who knew, but actually kind of gave us a bit of a head start in what we had to deliver in 2021.
Except I remember the conversation with you that said how much more difficult it was to deliver online than it is to deliver live concerts as we're doing now.
It certainly was a hell of a lot more difficult to do online than actually, having 32 young artists here on the stage in Sydney.
Yes.
But that aside, so what have been some of your highlights for this year's competition?
Well, I think the idea of being actually able to meet the person you're supporting, and I think it's very interesting the way we got to support the various competitors, in that I was unable to come to the dinner because I was working that night, if you recall.
Yes, I do.
But I think they all pulled out of a hat. Or was it a key on the piano?
It was a key on the piano. All interactive. Indeed. And so we see the friends around the behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, and some of the work which and the volunteer. It's all volunteer, isn't it?
Yes, all of it.
Yes. So all of that volunteer work is so valuable to actually make this big competition actually happen. What would be your hopes for the future of the competition?
Well, my hopes for the future is that we're able to see it continue. That's the first thing. And I know the new structure with Piano Plus, which is a bit like the old structure of Claire's Foundation in a way. But I think the things that you're undertaking look exciting. The Friends are still committed to raising the funds to give the $50,000 for the first prize for the competition, which will still be a star attraction of Piano Plus.
Will, yes.
So I want that to succeed so that the competition can continue to succeed.
That's
because
wonderful.
I think it does give us a place on the musical map. Once upon a time there was a minister back in the days of Malcolm Fraser, yes, who actually saw the international value, and that was the first and only time that the competition got a grant from the federal government.
Yes.
Except I think there was the odd amount that they'd allow if we commissioned a new work. And of course Peter Sculthorpe was the first to be commissioned.
Indeed.
And I actually still have his the original of his piece that was commissioned.
What a wonderful memento. Maybe you could share that with us one day, Bronwyn. So just tell us how can people get involved in terms of the Friends?
Well, we welcome anyone to become a member of the Friends if you love music, you love particularly the piano. And I think in the program there are details, or you can go to the website of the competition and just fill out the forms, and it's very reasonable. It's a whole $45.
Indeed.
And that gives you access to all our programs and the newsletter and keeping up to date with what's happening. So we'd love to welcome you. If you feel like joining us, you'd be most welcome.
That's right. So people can actually go to the website, which is simply pianoplus.com.au, and join up to be a member of the Friends. Bronwyn Bishop, thank you so much for joining us today and talking to us a little bit about the Friends and the history of the competition. Thank you very much indeed.
Great pleasure.